Morning. Welcome to the Education Decision Meeting. I am Susie Horton. I'm the Cabinet Member for Education. A little bit of housekeeping, although most people in this room probably heard it before, but in the interest of safety, if the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts and assemble in front of Queen Victoria's statue in Guildhall Square. In order to comply with the Portsmouth Cultural Trust fire marshal regulations, please remember to sign out when you leave the building after today's meeting. May I draw people's attention to the fact that this meeting will be live streamed from a camera at a fixed location at the back of the meeting room, and the recording will be on the Council's website. Members of the public, who are zero, are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly that they do not wish to be recorded. Finally, may I ask people to use the microphones provided when they're speaking. Okay, I'm now going to ask people to introduce themselves. So we'll go around here.
I'm Bev Pennicott, Finance Manager for Children, Families and Education.
Welcome.
Maria Smith, Group Accountant for Children, Families and Education.
I'm David Penrose, Democratic Services.
And we have Fiona Callahan, the Beep Democracy reporter for the news, and today with her Sam, a journalism student. So thank you very much for coming, and everyone is welcome. And perfect timing. That's okay. Yeah, just introduce yourself. We're literally just finished.
Mike Stone, Deputy Director, Education.
Thank you, Mike. So, agenda item 1 is apologies for absence, and I've just received a message from Tom Coles, who has sent his apologies. He's ill, and he is the education spokesperson for Labour Group. Are there any other apologies?
No.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. I have my standing one, which is that I am on the governing body of Quaintwater Junior School. So we go on to item 3, which is the Dedicated Schools Grant 2018-19 Quarter 3 Budget Monitoring. Over to Bev.
Thank you. This is a report for noting, and it sets out the financial position for the Dedicated Schools Grant at the end of December 2018. Table 1, which is on the second page, sets out the overall position, and you can see right at the top there's a net increase in income of £366,000. In the main, this relates to the additional high needs income of £465,000, which was announced by the Secretary of State before Christmas, although it has been offset by a previously reported overspend. There are some other overspends shown in the table. Additional special school places at Willows and Mary Rose have resulted in a projected overspend of £65,000. On the early years side, projected take-up of nursery places for 2-, 3 and 4-year-olds has resulted in an estimated additional cost of £194,000 actually, although this has been offset by expected savings on central recharges and the Disability Access Fund, resulting in that net overspend of £30,000 that you can see on early years. We're currently projecting a net overspend of £111,000 on the high needs block, and that's mostly due to significant growth in numbers and complexity of pupils requiring top-up funding, and we've seen that growth particularly in the mainstream sector. All of the estimates obviously have been based on information up to the end of December, so class list, pupil numbers, etc. for the autumn term. So at this stage, all of those projections contain estimates of pupil numbers and take up for the spring term. Taking all of those things into consideration, we are currently estimating a positive balance to carry forward on the Dedicated Schools Grant of £2.4 million.
Thank you very much. Did anyone else want to add anything? Mike, did you want to add anything? No. I think it's very well explained in here. The only thing I want to add is obviously this is absolute evidence that despite some money from the government, this is an area where there is a massive pressure. Despite good management, despite, being really knowledgeable about what's happening, you get a little bit of money extra from the government and it doesn't actually deal with the underlying issues. So I just want to make that point. Okay, so I note it. That's what I have to do, yes? So I note let me just read it out, make sure that we got it properly. Okay, so I note the projected year-end budget position and the DSG as of the 31st of December, together with all those explanations that we've just been through. Okay, so item number 4 is the Education Portfolio Budget Monitoring Report for the third quarter.
Thank you. This is another report for noting, and this one sets out the financial position for the education portfolio, as you said, at the end of December. There's a table at paragraph 4.3 which sets out the latest position on the revenue account, and you can see that overall we're projecting an overspend of £209,000. The detail for that is set out in paragraphs 4.4 to 4.7, but a couple of things that I'd just like to pull out for you. The cash limit has reduced by £1 million, and this is an accounting adjustment where the approved DSG contribution of £1 million to the capital scheme has gone into the education portfolio as income. The cash limit has been reduced as a result, and then that budget has been transferred into our revenue reserve for capital. So that's that one. As you can see from the variances, the main area of overspend continues to be home to school transport. It's £300,000 overspend as the number of young people eligible continues to grow. That overspend can be managed this year by use of the portfolio reserve, but the service faces a huge challenge in future years in trying to contain that overspend. Just to note that. Moving on, there's a summary of the capital programme which is set out at Appendix 1. There are some notes annotated against the side of specific schemes, but might provide more detail on the capital programme in agenda item 6. As you can see, the capital programme is currently projecting a small variance overspend of 14,600, but this will be mopped up when we review all of the needs. So we'll be using any underspends to offset that.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to say something on that?
Well, just to add, to say that obviously within education we've been trying to manage this budget as carefully as we can. We're fortunate that we have a carry forward which will obviously mitigate the overspend that is forecast. Going forward into next year, I think just to say that we know the pressure is going to be around home school transport. We have put in place some plans to look at some further savings on top of the savings that have already been asked for by members, but it's still going to be a huge challenge. So we do recognise that, and we'll be working as hard as we can to address that, but it's going to be a challenge. Yeah.
Duly noted that it's going to be a challenge. Yeah, at the end, I just want just to really give weight to that the home to school transport, we're really aware that that's a major issue in contributing to this, and numbers are going up, not going down. So you can get some great ideas and to make some savings, but if your numbers go up, then actually that doesn't make any difference to the overspend. And I just want to say with the capital one, I think that's amazing. The capital projects, how actually, even though there's a slight projected overspend, that is quite incredible. So there's some very careful financial management there. Okay, so if no one else wants to say anything, then I will just note this portfolio forecast revenue and capital budget positions for the end of 2018. Okay, Bev, again, it's your show today. Item 5, which is 2019-20 Element 3 top-up arrangements.
Okay, thank you. This report actually seeks a range of decisions, and it's around the DSG funding for high needs for 2019-20, and those decisions are set out at paragraph 2. You'll recall that you made a number of decisions around funding for high needs in October, and that took account of the circumstances at that time. However, in December, the Secretary of State announced additional funding for high needs, and Portsmouth's share of that funding was £464,668 in 2018-19 and again in 1920. And that has reduced the need to reduce the Element 3 top-up rates that we had originally proposed. So given that this funding is now available, it seems sensible to revert to the current processes and top-up rates for special schools, AP, inclusion centres and for children with EHCPs and mainstream schools as set out in Appendix 1, which are all exactly the same as 18-19. And in addition, it's proposed to revert to the existing arrangements for outreach and portage that we discussed previously as well. With that back in place, officers will monitor the position following the injection of the additional funding, and that will allow us appropriate time for any future recommendations to be fully considered. There is one exception to the status quo, which is the top-up for Flying Bull Academy. And that school recently highlighted their difficulty in making appropriate provision for the pupils placed in their AP unit due to the increasingly complex needs of those pupils. So following a review of their business case, we're recommending an increase in their top-up only from £4,638 to £6,000 per year full-time equivalent from the 1st of September 2019.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything, Mike?
No, I think except to say that we've communicated this to heads, that this is the intention, obviously subject to your approval today. It's been welcomed by the heads that the additional funding has been taken into account of, but nobody's under any illusion that we've got a challenge here as well, and we will be going back again later this year with probably a new set of proposals. They may not be as challenging as these, but we certainly will have to go back. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is very well versed because of the last decision meeting, but I think, and for people who aren't aware of that, mainly you guys over there, Fiona was here, weren't you? So the order of the meetings, that as we changed this and brought this back here so that we'd have an opportunity to talk to Schools Forum and to hear what their preference was, and I'm really glad that we did that actually and actually consulted with schools. So for me, it's kind of a good news story that's not really a good news story. It's been great this year to be able to change those decisions we'd made before, which were difficult decisions, and to give a kind of breathing space. But I think no one's under any illusion that this is sufficient money to be able to meet the needs of those children in the way that we'd like to. So that's the main thing I want to say on that. So it's recommended that I approve the 2019-20 Element 3 top-up rates for special schools, inclusion centres and alternative provision settings as set out in Appendix 1, which I do, and reverse the decision made on the 9th of October 2018 to implement the changes to the high needs funding, namely, and I'm going to list them here so we're really clear, so these are reversed: the introduction of a banding system for Element 3 top-up funding for children with EHCPs in mainstream schools, the introduction of a banding system for Element 3 top-up funding for children with EHCPs in inclusion centres, reduce special school rates by 1%, to recommission the outreach contract from September 2019 to achieve a cost reduction of 10%, and to make efficiencies in the Portage Plus team in order to release £10,000 of funding. Okay. So that takes us on to the last agenda item, which is item 6, the school modernisation programme for the third quarter 2018-19, and I'm assuming I'm handing over to Mike.
Yes, I'm going to deputise for Caroline Corcoran today. So, so this is a report for noting, although there is one update which I'll have to give today, which wasn't in the report as a result. So it's a new development that happened this week. But basically, this report is to provide an update on progress of all of our urgent school condition projects, which we fund on an annual basis, phase 2 of our secondary school sufficiency programme, and also where we are with our special school sufficiency schemes. So if we start with urgent condition projects, Just to say that we, if just looking back to 17-18, there is still one live project, which is Northern Parade. That is in hand and scheduled to be completed later this year, but I just wanted to alert that one. And for 18-19, all of the projects are on track. Many have been completed, but you'll see from the appendix there, we still have 6 schemes at the moment which are being progressed. I won't go through the details of each of those schemes, but just to reiterate that they are all on track. So that's the urgent condition projects. For the secondary sufficiency schemes, this is phase 2 of our sufficiency programme for secondary schools to meet the demand for secondary school places. There are 3 schemes that we are currently taking forward, all of which are starting this year. Aberlord Lord Nelson School, Charter Academy and the Portsmouth Academy expansion schemes going ahead for all 3 of those schools. And again, they are all on track. Works are due to start this year and be completed the following year. And then finally, on special school provision sufficiency schemes, and this is where I have a bit of an update. Again, in the appendix, we outline the schemes that we're currently taking forward, of which there are 3. Redwood Park Academy, and here we do have a bit of an update. So we were due to start those works this term and to have them completed by September. Unfortunately, the group that we were going to contract with, we are in dispute with at the moment, so we will not be contracting with them, and so we're going to have to re-procure those works. So at the moment, the scheduled completion date for Redwood Park Academy, which is effectively an expansion and an extension, will be March 2020. It will mean we're going to have to look at a temporary solution to enable us to accommodate all the learners from September, and we're working with Solent Academies Trust on that solution, probably going to be modular units being sited on Redwood Park. So just an update there for you, but we are on top of that. And then the other 2 schemes are going ahead as planned. So Cliffdale Primary Academy works due to be completed very shortly. There has been a delay. Originally it was going to be in November, but they should be completed during the half term. And then the other works are at Willows Centre for Children. Those are phase 2 works where we're doing some remodelling of that school and of their reception area, and those works will be completed probably by, well, certainly by September, we think now actually by June of this year, so that's on track also. And I think just a final word on special school places. You may be aware that we are currently undertaking a feasibility study to look at what the future need is required. And we know that there will be additional places needed. It just depends on where those places are. Do we invest in our special schools? Do we look at inclusion centres within mainstream settings? Or do we ask our mainstream schools to become even more inclusive than they are already? So that piece of work is ongoing at the moment, and we'll be coming back later this year with a plan around special school places.
Excellent. Thank you. So do you want to add anything else? No. That was a really clear report. I actually think we have a really good record of keeping things on track. So sometimes you do get an anomaly, but they're really good progress on those schemes. And just to echo what Mike has said about the special needs, there was Fiona might remember this from the Schools Forum, a strategic review of SEN, and that's what's come out of that, is actually looking about what do we want to our SEN provision to look like going forward. So that's very welcome, that piece of work. So recommendations then, that I note the progress on the school modernisation urgent condition projects, the secondary school sufficiency projects and the special school sufficiency projects as set out in this report, which I duly note. Anyone else want to make any other comments? No? I'd just like to place on record my thanks to all the officers who not only write the reports but do all the work behind. I think there's some really positive stories despite the national climate of pressures in education. Thank you very much, everyone.